The morning sun painted the wheat fields of New Bizan colony in golden light. Hannah ran through the tall grass, her black hair flowing behind her like a banner. Her younger brother Jiwon chased after her, laughing as he tried to catch up. "Wait. For me," Jiwon called out, his small legs pumping hard to keep pace with his sister. Hannah slowed down and turned around, grinning. "You're too slow, little brother. Maybe when you're older, you can run as fast as me." The two children played in the fields near their home. Their father Daeyeon was fixing the fence around their property, and their mother Inhai was hanging clothes to dry. It was a peaceful day like any other on their farming colony. New Bizin was one of 17 human settlements on the outer edge of known space. The colonists had come here to start new lives, to farm the rich soil and raise their families in peace. They had left behind the crowded cities of Earth. For the open skies and endless fields of this new world, Daeyeon had been a captain in the Earth Defense Force before coming to New Bizin. He had fought in battles against space pirates and protected merchant ships. But that was before Hannah was born. Now he was a farmer, content to grow crops and watch his children play. As Hannah and Jiwon ran through the wheat, something blocked out the sun. A massive shadow fell across the fields. The children stopped running and looked up. Of them, enormous ships hung in the sky. They were black as night and shaped like giant teardrops. The ships were so large they seemed to cover half the sky. Strange blue lights pulsed along their hulls. "Papa!" Hannah called out, fear creeping into her voice. Daeyeon dropped his tools and ran toward his children. He had never seen ships like these before. They were not human designs. As a former military man, he knew what this meant. These were alien vessels. The black ships descended lower. The air began to hum with energy. Then beams of bright white light shot down from the ships. The beams moved across the ground like searchlights, sweeping back and forth. "Run to the house!" Daeyeon shouted to his children. Now, but before Hannah and Jiwon could move, one of the white beams found them. The light surrounded the children, and they could not move. Their bodies were frozen in place by some invisible force. Daeyeon ran toward them, but another beam caught him too. He struggled against the energy field, but it was no use. He could only watch as his children were slowly lifted into the air. "Hannah! Jiwon!" Inhai screamed from the house. She ran outside, but a beam caught her as well. All across New Bizan colony, the same thing was happening. Children between the ages of 8 and 12 were being taken from their homes, their schools, their playgrounds. The alien beams only targeted the young ones. Adults and teenagers were left behind, frozen and helpless. Hannah felt herself rising higher and higher. She could see her parents below, trapped in the white light, reaching up toward her. Tears ran down her face, but she could not speak or move. Beside her, Jiwon was also being lifted up. His eyes were wide with terror. Other children from the colony floated nearby, all of them caught in the alien beams. The children were pulled up into the belly of the nearest ship. Inside, the walls glowed with the same blue light as the ship's exterior. Strange symbols covered every surface. The air smelled metallic and cold. Tall, thin creatures moved through the ship. They had gray skin and large black eyes. Their limbs were too long for their bodies, and they moved in ways that seemed wrong. These were the Vorthek. The aliens did not speak to the children. They simply guided them into large chambers filled with other human children. Hannah saw kids from other colonies, too. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Back on the surface, the alien ships began to rise. The white beams disappeared, freeing the adults from their paralysis. Daeyeon fell to his knees as he watched the massive vessels climb toward space. "No!" he screamed at the sky. "Bring them back!" But the ships were already gone, vanishing into hyperspace with their cargo of stolen children. Across 17 human colonies, the same scene played out. Parents watched helplessly as their children were taken. In total, over 3,000 young humans disappeared that day. After the ships left, something strange happened. Words began to appear on the ground where the vessels had hovered. The alien writing burned itself into the soil, glowing with hot light. Then the symbols changed, becoming letters that humans could read. The message was simple and terrifying. Your young serve a higher purpose now. The words appeared in every human language on every colony that was attacked. English, Korean, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, the aliens knew them all. This was not a random attack. It was planned, calculated. The Vorthik had studied humanity before striking. Dayan stared at the burned words. In his wheat field, his hands shook with rage and grief. He had lost his children to creatures he did not understand for reasons he could not fathom. Inhai collapsed beside him, sobbing. Our babies, she whispered. They took our babies. All across the colonies, emergency signals went out. Calls for help flooded the communication networks. But what could anyone do? The alien ships were gone, vanished into the vast emptiness of space. On Earth, military leaders gathered in crisis meetings. Politicians demanded answers. Scientists tried to understand what had happened, but no one knew where the children had been taken or why. The only clue was the message burned into the ground. Your young serve a higher purpose now. What purpose? What did the aliens want with human children? Dayan stood up slowly. He looked at the alien words one more time, memorizing every symbol. Then he walked to his house and opened an old storage chest. Inside were his military uniforms and weapons from his days in the Earth Defense Force. He had thought his fighting days were over. He had wanted to live in peace, to watch his children grow up in safety, but peace was gone now. His children were gone, and someone was going to pay across the 17 attacked colonies. Other parents were making the same decision. Former soldiers, pilots, engineers, doctors, people who had come to the frontier to escape war were now preparing for the biggest fight of their lives. The aliens had made a mistake. They had taken human children. They had threatened what humans valued most, their young, their future, their hope. And for that there would be consequences. As night fell on New Bizen, Dayan cleaned his old service weapon. Tomorrow he would contact other parents. They would organize. They would plan. They would find their children, no matter how far they had to travel or how many aliens they had to kill. The Vorthik thought they were dealing with simple farmers and colonists. They would soon learn the truth about humanity. When you take their children, humans become something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something that will not stop until every threat to their young is eliminated. The hunt was about to begin. 3 months had passed since the children disappeared. 3 months of silence from the aliens who took them. 3 months of parents waiting by communication devices, hoping for any word about their missing sons and daughters. On Earth, Dr. Minji worked late into the night at the Xenobiology Institute. Her office was covered with star charts, attack reports, and medical files. She had been studying the alien raid for weeks, looking for patterns that others had missed. Minji was one of the best alien experts that humanity had. She had studied every known alien species and their behaviors. But the Vorthak were different. They were organized in ways that worried her. She spread out the colony attack reports on her desk. New Bizen, Harmony Station, Green Valley, Terra Nova, 17 settlements hit at exactly the same time. The timing was too perfect to be random. Computer, show me the ages of all taken children, she said. A holographic display appeared above her desk. Numbers and charts filled the air. Minji studied them carefully. Almost every child taken was between 8 and 12 years old. Only a few were younger or older. Show me their medical records, she ordered. More data appeared. Rang. Scans, intelligence tests, school records. Minji's eyes widened as she saw the pattern. Every single child who was taken had scored high on neural activity tests. Their brains were more active than normal children. The aliens had not taken children randomly. They had selected specific ones, children with special minds. But how did they know which children to target? Across the city, at the Diplomatic Corps building, Hyung sat in a secure communication room. She was Earth's best translator and had spent years learning alien languages. If anyone could understand what the Vorthek wanted, it was her, a soft chime indicated an incoming message. The computer screen lit up with alien symbols. Kyung's blood went cold as she recognized the Vorthek writing style. She worked quickly to translate the message. The words that appeared made her stomach turn. People of Earth, your expansion beyond current territories must cease. You have 30 days to withdraw from all colonies established in the last 10 years. If you refuse, more of your young will be taken. This is your only warning. Kyung immediately sent the message to military command. Within minutes, her secure phone was ringing. This is Admiral Sue? Came the voice on the other end. Is the translation accurate? Yes, sir, Kyung replied. They want us to give up our newest colonies? If we don't, they'll take more children. There was silence on the line. Kyung could almost hear the Admiral thinking. Finally, he spoke again. Have you seen this tactic before, in your alien studies? Kyung pulled up her files on extinct civilizations. What she found made her hands shake. Sir, I need to check something. I'll call you back in 1 hour. Kyung spent the next hour going through old records, ancient alien databases, archaeological reports from dead worlds. What she discovered was horrifying. She called Admiral Sung back immediately. Sir, the Vorthak have done this before. 6 times, actually, always the same pattern. First, they take children from a species. Then they demand territory concessions. When the species agrees, they demand more. Eventually, they take everything. What happened to those species? The Admiral asked, though Kyung suspected he already knew. They're all extinct, sir, every one of them. Meanwhile, on New Bizan colony, Dae-yun had been busy. He had contacted every family that lost children. Former soldiers, engineers, pilots, doctors, anyone with useful skills. They met in secret, planning and organizing. The group called themselves the Children's Liberation Front. Their goal was simple: find their kids and bring them home. Everything else was secondary. We can't wait for the government to act, Dae-yun told the group. Politicians will negotiate. Military leaders will plan, but we're parents. We'll do whatever it takes. Woojin, a former Navy intelligence officer, had been tracking alien ship movements. I've identified 3 possible locations where they might be holding our children. All of them are deep in unexplored space. How do we get there? Asked Sun-ho, a former pilot. We'll need ships, weapons, supplies for a long journey, Dae-yun replied. Luckily, we have people with the right skills. The group began planning their own rescue mission. They would not wait for official approval. They would not ask permission. They were going to find their children, even if it meant flying into the unknown regions of space. Back on Earth, Dr. Minji made another disturbing discovery. She had been studying the brain patterns of children who were taken, comparing them to children who were left behind. Computer, show me the neural activity of taken children 2 weeks before the attack. The data that appeared made her gasp. The taken children had shown unusual brain activity in the weeks before the attack. Strange dream patterns. Increased neural firing in specific regions. She called the parents of several taken children. Mrs. Park, this is Dr. Minji from the Xenobiology Institute. I need to ask you about your daughter's behavior before she was taken. What kind of behavior? Mrs. Park asked. Did she have any unusual dreams? Sleep problems? Strange behavior? There was a long pause. She kept talking about dark ships and singing crystals. She said they called to her in her dreams. I thought it was just nightmares from watching too many science fiction movies. Minji called 5 more parents. Each one told similar stories. Their children had dreamed about alien ships weeks before the attack. They had been having nightmares about being taken. The truth hit Minji like a physical blow. The Vorthak had been inside the children's minds before the attack. They had been testing them, selecting them, preparing them. This was not a simple kidnapping. This was a hunting expedition. The aliens had studied human children like a scientist. Studies lab animals. They had chosen the best specimens and taken them, but for what purpose? Minji pulled up every database she could access. Ancient alien texts, archaeological records, captured alien technology. She searched for any mention of the Vorthek and their methods. What she found in an old archaeological report made her blood freeze. The report was from a dead world called Kepler 442b. The species that lived there had been extinct for over 1,000 years. But their ruins told a story. A story of children taken by creatures matching the Vorthek. Description: the archaeological team had found something horrible in the ruins. Machines made from biological material. Computers that used living brain tissue. And in those computers, they had found the remains of children's minds. The Vorthek did not just kill other species. They used their children as living computers. They turned young minds into biological processors, forced to calculate and think for their alien masters. Minji's hands shook as she sent her findings to Admiral Sung and Kyung. Humanity now knew what the Vorthek wanted with their children. They wanted to turn them into living machines. The 30-day deadline was still weeks away. But Minji knew that humanity could not wait. Every day that passed was another day that human children were being experimented on. Another day closer to them being turned into alien biocomputers. She picked up her secure phone and dialed Admiral Sung's direct line. "Admiral, this is Dr. Minji. I need to see you immediately. I know what they're doing to our children. I'll send a transport. How bad is it?" Minji looked at the archaeological photos on her screen. Pictures of machines made from children's minds. "It's worse than we imagined, sir. Much worse." Admiral Sung stood before the Emergency Defense Council in the underground command center beneath Geneva. The room was filled with Earth's top military leaders, politicians, and scientists. Dr. Minji's report lay on the table before them, its contents too horrible to fully accept. "The Vorthek ultimatum expires in 18 days, Admiral Sung announced. "They want us to abandon our outer colonies, give up our expansion into space, return to Earth like beaten dogs." General Morrison, head of ground forces, shook his head. "If we give in to their demands, we'll be trapped on Earth. No room to grow. No future for our species." "And if we don't give in, they'll take more children," added Secretary Williams. "Turn them into those biocomputer things Dr. Minji described." Admiral Sung walked to the wall display showing human space. Red dots marked the 17 attacked colonies, green dots showed their remaining settlements. "There's a third option," he said quietly. "We find their base and destroy them before they can take anyone else." The room erupted in arguments. Some called it suicide. Others called it the only choice. Admiral Sung let them argue for several minutes before raising his hand for silence. "Operation Cradle Song is already authorized," he announced. "We've been building up our forces for 3 months under the cover of defensive positioning. It's time to bring our children home." In space, Commander Wujin led a small team of reconnaissance ships toward the outer rim. His mission was simple but dangerous: find the Vorthek strongholds without being detected. Wujin had been Earth's best intelligence officer before the attack. He had spent years tracking pirates and smugglers through the dark spaces between stars. Now he was hunting something far more dangerous. His ship, the Silent Runner, was designed for stealth operations. Its hull absorbed sensor sweeps and its engines ran almost silently. If anyone could find the aliens without being caught, it was Wujin. "Commander, I'm reading energy signatures on long-range scanners," reported his sensor operator, Lieutenant Kim. "Bearing 345 Mark 12. Distance approximately 40 light-years. That's outside map space," Wujin observed. "Take us in slow. Maximum stealth protocols." The Silent Runner changed course toward the unknown region. As they traveled deeper into unexplored space, Wujin thought about his own daughter. She had been too old to be taken, but many of her friends were gone. He had promised her he would bring them back. On Earth, Dr. Nari worked with the families of taken children. As a child psychologist, her job was to help the parents cope with their loss. But she had discovered something important in her interviews. "Tell me about your son's dreams again," she said to Mr. Jung, whose 8-year-old boy Minho had been taken. "He kept talking about dark ships with singing crystals," Mr. Jung explained. "He said the crystals called his name in his sleep. He would wake up crying, saying they wanted him to come with them. Nari had heard similar stories from dozens of parents. The children had all experienced the same dreams weeks before the attack. Dreams about alien ships. Dreams about being called by strange voices. She pulled out her tablet and showed Mr. Jung a drawing made by another parent. "Did your son ever draw anything like this?" Mr. Jung's eyes widened. "That's exactly what Minho drew. How did you know?" Nari showed him more drawings from other children. They were all similar, dark ships with blue lights, strange crystal formations, alien symbols that human children should not have known. "The Vorthek were scanning our children's minds before the attack," Nari explained. They were mapping their neural patterns through some kind of long-range contact. That's how they knew which children to take. "But why take children at all?" Mr. Jung asked. Nari hesitated. She knew what Dr. Minji had discovered, but the truth was too horrible to share with grieving parents. "We're still investigating that," she said gently. Far from Earth, Commander Wujin's reconnaissance team made their first contact with the enemy. They found a damaged Vorthek scout ship drifting in space near a dead star. "No life signs," reported Lieutenant Kim. "The ship appears to have been damaged in some kind of accident. Take us alongside," Wujin ordered. "Prepare a boarding party." The silent runner docked with the alien vessel. Wujin led a team of specialists onto the damaged ship. What they found inside made his blood run cold. The ship's main computer was unlike anything humans had seen before. Instead of electronic circuits, it used living tissue, brain matter connected by organic conduits. The computer was literally alive. "Commander, you need to see this," called Chief Engineer Dong Yun from deeper in the ship. Wujin followed the engineer to what appeared to be a medical bay. Strange machines lined the walls, connected to tanks filled with glowing fluid. In one of the tanks floated something that made Wujin step backward in horror. It was a child's brain, still alive and connected to alien machinery. "There are more," Dong Yun whispered, pointing to other tanks. "Dozens of them." Wujin forced himself to look closer. The brains were not human. They belonged to some other species, possibly one of the civilizations the Vorthak had destroyed before coming to human space. "They're being used as living computers," Dong Yun observed. "The neural tissue processes information while the machinery keeps them alive." Wujin activated his emergency transmitter. "Silent runner to Fleet Command. Priority Alpha, we have found evidence of the Vorthak's purpose. It's worse than we thought." The message raced back to Earth at faster than light speeds. Within hours, Admiral Soong was reading Wujin's full report. The Vorthak were not just taking children, they were turning them into living machines. Admiral Soong called an emergency meeting with Dr. Minji and the other experts. "How long do we have?" he asked Dr. Minji. "Based on the archaeological evidence from other species, the conversion process takes several months. Our children have been gone for 3 months already. We may have weeks at best before the process becomes irreversible." Admiral Soong made his decision. "Signal the fleet. Operation Cradle Song begins now." We're not waiting for the ultimatum to expire. Across human space, warships began moving toward the outer rim. The largest military operation in human history was beginning. 7 battle groups consisting of over 3,000 ships prepared to enter unexplored space on New Bisan. Colony Daeyun received an encrypted message from his old military contacts. Operation Cradle Song was beginning, but there was no guarantee the military would prioritize rescuing children over destroying the enemy. "We're still going," he told the other parents in the Liberation Front. "The military has their mission. We have ours." The parents had managed to acquire several ships and weapons over the past months. Former pilots like Sunho had prepared the vessels for long-range travel. Engineers like Dong Yun, who had been recalled to military service, had provided them with military-grade equipment. Wujin's reconnaissance data shows 3 possible locations, Daeyun explained to the group. "The military will hit the largest stronghold. We'll go after the research facilities where our children are most likely to be held." Captain Jungsu, a former Marine who had lost his daughter, checked his weapon. "How many of us are going?" 57. Volunteers? Daeyeon replied. All former military? All parents have taken children. The Liberation Front had become something unprecedented in human history, a paramilitary organization of parents, willing to fight an alien empire to rescue their children. They had no official authority, no government backing, just the desperate determination of mothers and fathers who would not abandon their young dot. As both the official fleet and the parent volunteers prepared to depart, Dr. Minji made one final discovery. She had been analyzing the neural patterns from the children's dreams. Comparing them to known alien technology, the Vortex scanning method had a weakness. Human children's brains were more adaptable than other species. Where alien children submitted to the neural mapping, human children fought back. Their dreams had been nightmares because their minds were resisting the Vortex intrusion. If the children were still fighting the conversion process, there might still be time to save them. But the window was closing fast. Dr. Minji sent her findings to Admiral Sung just as the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. Admiral, the children may still be conscious inside the biocomputers. They may be fighting back. If we can disrupt the Vortex control systems, we might be able to free their minds. Admiral Sung smiled grimly. Human children were tougher than the aliens expected. That was going to be the Vortex's first mistake. And if he had anything to say about it, it would also be their last. Deep inside the Vortex bio-integration facility, Hannah felt the alien machines trying to reshape her mind for the 100th time that day. The process was supposed to be painless, but she could feel the foreign technology attempting to override her thoughts and memories. No, she whispered inside her mind, pushing back against the intrusion. I am Hannah. I am human. You cannot change that. Around her, thousands of other human children were fighting the same battle. Connected to the biocomputer network, they could sense each other's resistance. What had started as individual defiance was becoming organized rebellion. Minho had emerged as their unofficial leader. At 12 years old, he was one of the oldest children in the facility. His natural talent for understanding systems had helped him map the biocomputer network that connected them all. Listen to me, his thoughts reached out to every human child. In the facility, we're not victims anymore. We're inside their computer system that makes us dangerous to them. Through the network, Hannah could sense other children from different species who had been taken over the years. But these older biocomputers felt different, empty. The alien children had been successfully converted. Their personalities erased and replaced with Vortex programming. Why haven't they been able to convert us? Asked Jinho, an 8-year-old who had been fighting the process for 3 months. Because we're human, Minho replied. We don't give up. We don't follow orders without asking why. And we definitely, don't let bullies tell us what to think. The children began to experiment with their connection to the alien systems. They discovered they could influence more than just their own biocomputers. The entire facility was connected through the same network they were part of. Yoran, a 10-year-old girl with a talent for languages, found she could scramble the Vortex communications. I'm making their orders come out as nonsense, she reported to the others. The guards keep getting confused about what they're supposed to do. Dongwu, who had always been good at math, was feeding incorrect calculations into the navigation systems. Their ships can't plot accurate hyperspace jumps anymore. I keep changing the numbers when they're not looking. But it was Hannah who made the most important discovery. While exploring the network, she found something the Vortex had tried to hide, the minds of children from other species, supposedly erased but still present deep in the system. They're still there, she told Minho excitedly. The other children, the ones they said were converted. Their personalities are buried, but they're still alive. Minho understood immediately. If we can wake them up, we'll have thousands of allies instead of just hundreds. The human children began reaching out to the buried minds of other species. It was slow work, like trying to wake someone from a deep sleep, but gradually they began to make contact. A Kelleran child named Zeph was the first to respond. His species had been extinct for 500 years, but his mind had been trapped in the biocomputer system ever since. I remember, came his weak mental voice. I remember my home. My parents? The ships that took us? We're going to get out of here, Hannah promised him, all of us together. As more alien children awakened, the human kids learned about the vortex. Other victims. Species after species had been destroyed using the same method. Children taken first, then demands for territory, then total extermination, but the human children were different. They were waking up minds the vortex thought they had erased. They were turning the biocomputer network into a weapon of rebellion. Instead of submission, outside the facility, the vortex were becoming aware that something was wrong. Their biocomputers were malfunctioning. Navigation errors were increasing. Communications were becoming unreliable. The facility commander, a tall gray creature named Vorthek Prime Kesh, studied the error reports with growing alarm. The human subjects continue to resist conversion, reported one of his technicians. Their neural patterns are contaminating nearby systems. Increase the integration pressure, Kesh ordered. These primitives will submit like all the others. But when the technicians tried to force the conversion process, the children pushed back harder. Their resistance created feedback loops that damaged the biocomputer arrays. Several systems completely shut down. Inside the network, Minho felt the increased pressure and rallied the other children. They're scared, he told them. They've never encountered minds like ours before. Let's show them what happens when you mess with human children. The children began coordinating their sabotage efforts. When the Vorthak tried to use the biocomputers for military calculations, the kids fed them false data. When they attempted communications, the children scrambled the messages. When they needed navigation coordinates, the young humans sent them toward empty space, but their most important achievement was continuing to wake up the alien children from previous conquests. Hundreds of young minds that had been sleeping for centuries began to remember who they were. An Altarian girl named Lisa shared memories of her crystalline homeworld. A draconian boy named Vex remembered flying through the clouds of his gas giant planet. Each awakened mind added to their growing rebellion. We are not alone, Hannah told the growing network of consciousness. We are thousands. And we will not be their slaves. Meanwhile, in space above the facility, the Vorthik defense fleet was experiencing its own problems. Ships that should have been coordinating their movements were flying in random directions. Weapon systems were targeting empty space. Communications between vessels had become almost impossible. Admiral Korth, commander of the Vorthik fleet, could not understand what was happening to his forces. Our biocomputers are failing, reported his tactical officer. All systems are showing errors. Run full diagnostics, Admiral Korth ordered. Find the source of these malfunctions. But the diagnostics showed nothing wrong with the hardware. The problems were coming from the software, the living minds that powered their computer systems. The human children were infecting the entire network with their resistance. Back in the facility, Minho had made contact with over 2,000 awakened alien children. Together, they began planning something unprecedented, a rebellion from inside the Vorthak's own computer systems. Listen to me, Minho's thoughts reached every conscious mind in the network. We know how their systems work now. We know their weaknesses. Tonight, when their guard shift changes, we take control. Hannah felt a surge of excitement from the other children. After months of being victims, they were finally going to fight back. What's the plan? Asked Yaren. We shut down their power systems, Minho explained. Open all the security doors. Turn off their gravity generators. Make it impossible for them to control us. What about their weapons? Worried Junho. Their weapons are controlled by biocomputers too, Dongwu pointed out. Computers that we're inside of now. The children began their final preparations. They had learned to hide their activities from Vorthak monitoring by creating false neural patterns that looked like normal conversion resistance. The aliens expected human children to fight back individually. They never expected organized rebellion. As the facility's night cycle began, thousands of young minds prepared to strike back against their captors. Human children who had been taken from their homes. Alien children who had been enslaved for Centuries, all united by their refusal to accept defeat. Remember, Hannah told them all, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every child who might be taken in the future. We're fighting so this never happens again. The Vorthak had made a fatal error when they targeted human children. They had expected to find compliant young minds ready for conversion. Instead, they had found the most stubborn, rebellious, questioning species in the galaxy. And now those children were about to show them what human defiance really meant. On my signal, Minho announced to the network. 3.do.1. Now. Across the facility, biocomputer systems suddenly turned against their creators. The children's war had begun. Deep inside the Vorthak biointegration facility, Hannah felt the alien machines trying to reshape her mind for the 100th time that day. The process was supposed to be painless, but she could feel the foreign technology attempting to override her thoughts and memories. No, she whispered inside her mind, pushing back against the intrusion. I am Hannah. I am human. You cannot change that. Around her, thousands of other human children were fighting the same battle. Connected to the biocomputer network, they could sense each other's resistance. What had started as individual defiance was becoming organized rebellion. Minho had emerged as their unofficial leader. At 12 years old, he was one of the oldest children in the facility. His natural talent for understanding systems had helped him map the biocomputer network that connected them all. Listen to me, his thoughts reached out to every human child. In the facility, we're not victims anymore. We're inside their computer system. That makes us dangerous to them. Through the network, Hannah could sense other children from different species who had been taken over the years. But these older biocomputers felt different, empty. The alien children had been successfully converted, their personalities erased and replaced with Vorthak programming. Why haven't they been able to convert us? Asked Jinho, an 8-year-old who had been fighting the process for 3 months. Because we're human, Minho replied. We don't give up. We don't follow orders without asking why. And we definitely don't let bullies tell us what to think. The children began to experiment with their connection to the alien systems. They discovered they could influence more than just their own biocomputers. The entire facility was connected through the same network they were part of. Yuran, a 10-year-old girl with a talent for languages, found she could scramble the Vorthak communications. I'm making their orders come out as nonsense, she reported. To the others, the guards keep getting confused about what they're supposed to do. Dongwu, who had always been good at math, was feeding incorrect calculations into the navigation systems. Their ships can't plot accurate hyperspace jumps anymore. I keep changing the numbers when they're not looking. But it was Hannah who made the most important discovery. While exploring the network, she found something the Vorthak had tried to hide: the minds of children from other species, supposedly erased but still present deep in the system. They're still there, she told Minho excitedly. The other children, the ones they said were converted. Their personalities are buried, but they're still alive. Minho understood immediately. If we can wake them up, we'll have thousands of allies instead of just hundreds. The human children began reaching out to the buried minds of other species. It was slow work, like trying to wake someone from a deep sleep. But gradually they began to make contact. A Kelleran child named Zeph was the first to respond. His species had been extinct for 500 years, but his mind had been trapped in the biocomputer system ever since. I remember, came his weak mental voice. I remember my home. My parents? The ships that took us? We're going to get out of here, Hannah promised him. All of us together. As more alien children awakened, the human kids learned about the Vorthaks. Other victims. Species after species had been destroyed using the same method. Children taken first, then demands for territory, then total extermination, but the human children were different. They were waking up minds the Vorthak thought they had erased. They were turning the biocomputer network into a weapon of rebellion. Instead of submission, outside the facility, the Vorthak were becoming aware that something was wrong. Their biocomputers were malfunctioning. Navigation errors were increasing. Communications were becoming unreliable. The facility commander, a tall gray creature named Vorthik Prime Kesh, studied the error reports with growing alarm. The human subjects continue to resist conversion, reported one of his technicians. Their neural patterns are contaminating nearby systems. Increase the integration pressure, Kesh ordered. These primitives will submit like all the others. But when the technicians tried to force the conversion process, the children pushed back harder. Their resistance created feedback loops that damaged the biocomputer arrays. Several systems completely shut down. Inside the network, Minho felt the increased pressure and rallied the other children. They're scared, he told them. They've never encountered minds like ours before. Let's show them what happens when you mess with human children. The children began coordinating their sabotage efforts. When the Vorthak tried to use the biocomputers for military calculations, the kids fed them false data. When they attempted communications, the children scrambled the messages. When they needed navigation coordinates, the young humans sent them toward empty space, but their most important achievement was continuing to wake up the alien children from previous conquests. Hundreds of young minds that had been sleeping for centuries began to remember who they were. An Altarian girl named Lisa shared memories of her crystalline homeworld. A draconian boy named Vex remembered flying through the clouds of his gas giant planet. Each awakened mind added to their growing rebellion. We are not alone, Hana told the growing network of consciousness. We are thousands. And we will not be their slaves. Meanwhile, in space above the facility, the Vorthik defense fleet was experiencing its own problems. Ships that should have been coordinating their movements were flying in random directions. Weapon systems were targeting empty space. Communications between vessels had become almost impossible. Admiral Korth, commander of the Vorthik fleet, could not understand what was happening to his forces. Our biocomputers are failing, reported his tactical officer. All systems are showing errors. Run full diagnostics, Admiral Korth ordered. Find the source of these malfunctions. But the diagnostics showed nothing wrong with the hardware. The problems were coming from the software, the living minds that powered their computer systems. The human children were infecting the entire network with their resistance. Back in the facility, Minho had made contact with over 2,000 awakened alien children. Together, they began planning something unprecedented, a rebellion from inside the Vorthak's own computer systems. Listen to me, Minho's thoughts reached every conscious mind in the network. We know how their systems work now. We know their weaknesses. Tonight, when their guard shift changes, we take control. Hannah felt a surge of excitement from the other children. After months of being victims, they were finally going to fight back. What's the plan? Asked Yurin. We shut down their power systems, Minho explained. Open all the security doors. Turn off their gravity generators. Make it impossible for them to control us. What about their weapons? Worried Jun-Ho. Their weapons are controlled by biocomputers too, Dongwu pointed out. Computers that we're inside of now. The children began their final preparations. They had learned to hide their activities from Vorthak monitoring by creating false neural patterns that looked like normal conversion resistance. The aliens expected human children to fight back individually. They never expected organized rebellion. As the facility's night cycle began, thousands of young minds prepared to strike back against their captors. Human children who had been taken from their homes. Alien children who had been enslaved for centuries, all united by their refusal to accept defeat. Remember, Hana told them all, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every child who might be taken in the future. We're fighting so this never happens again. The Vorthak had made a fatal error when they targeted human children. They had expected to find compliant young minds ready for conversion. Instead, they had found the most stubborn, rebellious, questioning species in the galaxy. And now those children were about to show them what human defiance really meant. On my signal, Minho announced to the network. 3.1. Across the facility, biocomputer systems suddenly turned against their creators. The children's war had begun. The moment Minho gave the signal, chaos erupted throughout the Vorthek facility. Every biocomputer system simultaneously turned against its operators. Lights went out. Security doors unlocked. Gravity generators shut down, sending Vorthek guards floating helplessly through corridors. In the command center, Primekesh watched in horror as his control panel sparked and died. Emergency alarms wailed throughout the facility as system after system failed. "What is happening?" he demanded of his technicians. "The biocomputers are rejecting all commands," one technician reported, panic in his voice. "They're operating independently of our control protocols." Inside the biocomputer network, thousands of children worked together with perfect coordination. The human kids directed the operation while awakened alien children provided knowledge about Vorthek technology. "Hannah, can you access the communication arrays?" Minho asked through their mental link. "Already on it," she replied. "Sending a distress signal on all human frequencies. Our parents need to know we're fighting back." The signal reached space just as Admiral Soong's battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Vorthek territory. His communications officer immediately detected the transmission. "Sir, we're receiving a signal from inside Vorthok space. It's on human emergency frequencies." "Put it through," Admiral Soong ordered. Hannah's voice, weak but determined, came through the speakers. "This is Hannah from New Bisan Colony. We're being held in a biocomputer facility. Coordinates follow. We're taking control of their systems from the inside. Please hurry." The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Their children were not only alive, they were fighting back. Fleet Tactical Officer Sunho quickly plotted the coordinates. "Sir, the facility is heavily defended. 3 battleships and a dozen cruisers." "Signal the Liberation Front," Admiral Soong commanded. "Their children are calling for help. Time to answer." Aboard the Liberation Front vessel, determined parent Dae-yun heard his daughter's voice and felt tears stream down his face. "You hear that?" he called to his crew of parent volunteers. "That's my Hana. Our kids are fighting. Now it's our turn." The Liberation Front ships accelerated toward the facility coordinates, their crews united by desperate determination. They had waited 3 months to hear their children's voices. Nothing would stop them now. In space around the facility, the Vorthek Defense Fleet was experiencing catastrophic failures. Ships that relied on biocomputer navigation were flying in random directions. Weapon systems targeted their own vessels. Communications had completely broken down. Admiral Korth tried to regain control of his forces, but every order he gave was corrupted by the rebelling biocomputers. "Sir, the humans have somehow infected our entire network," his tactical officer reported. "Our biocomputers are no longer under our control." "Then we'll fight manually," Admiral Korth declared. "Switch all systems to mechanical backup." But the Vorthek had become so dependent on their biocomputer technology that many ships barely functioned without it. Centuries of relying on enslaved minds had made them weak. Back in the facility, the children were making remarkable progress. They had gained control of the main power grid, the security systems, and most importantly, the biocomputer arrays. Themselves, Minho guided the other children as they explored their new capabilities. "Yaran, can you access the facility's database?" he asked. "I'm in," she replied. "Oh no, Donho, there are other facilities. Dozens of them. They have children from hundreds of species stored throughout their territory." "How many total?" Hannah asked, though she dreaded the answer. Yarin was quiet for a moment as she processed the data. "Over 100,000 children. Some have been here for centuries." The scope of Vorthek atrocities was staggering, but it also presented an opportunity. If we can connect to those other facilities, Minho realized, we can wake up all those children, turn every biocomputer in Vorthek space against them. "Is that possible?" asked Dongwu. Zeph, the Kelleran child who had been trapped for 500 years, provided the answer. "The facilities are all connected through hyperspace communication links. If we can access one, we can reach them all." The children began working to establish connections with other facilities. It was difficult work, requiring them to navigate complex alien security systems. But they had something the Vorthak had never expected: the combined intelligence of thousands of young minds working together. They made contact with other facilities. The effect was like a wave spreading across Vorthak space. Children who had been enslaved for centuries suddenly remembered who they were. Biocomputer systems throughout the Empire began turning against their operators. On a facility orbiting a red giant star, Altarian children awakened after 800 years of slavery. Their crystalline thought patterns resonated through the biocomputer network, creating harmonic frequencies that disrupted Vorthak control systems. Near the galactic core, Draconian children remembered their ability to process multiple data streams simultaneously. They began coordinating attacks on Vorthak military networks, turning their own fleet weapons against each other. The rebellion was spreading faster than the Vorthak could respond. Every facility they contacted added more awakened minds to their growing army of consciousness. Prime Kesh made a desperate decision. Activate the termination protocols, he ordered. Destroy the biocomputers before they can spread their contamination further. But when his technicians tried to execute the termination commands, the children blocked them. They had learned to protect not only themselves, but each other across the entire network. "We won't let you hurt us anymore," Hannah's voice echoed through the facility's communication system. "And we won't let you hurt anyone else?" The facility's defense turrets suddenly turned inward, targeting Vorthak positions instead of potential attackers. The children had taken control of the base's weapons. In space above, the first human ships arrived. The Liberation Front vessels, followed closely by Admiral Sung's battle fleet, found the Vorthak defense force in complete disarray. "Sir, enemy ships are firing on each other," reported Tactical Officer Sunho in amazement. "Their entire formation has collapsed." "Our children did this?" Admiral Sung said with pride. "Signal all ships. Begin rescue operations. Priority is getting those kids out safely." Captain Jungsu led the first wave of rescue shuttles toward the facility. The biocomputer-controlled defense systems not only allowed them to pass, but actively helped guide them to the correct docking bays. "Daddy's coming, sweethearts," he whispered to himself, thinking of his own daughter somewhere in the facility. As human forces breached the facility, they found Vorthak guards floating helplessly in zero-gravity corridors. The children had shut down artificial gravity throughout the base, leaving their captors unable to move effectively. "Follow the blue lights," came Hannah's voice over the facility's speakers. "We're guiding you to us." The rescue teams followed, paths lit by the children's control of the facility's systems. They found the biocomputer chambers where thousands of children were connected to alien machinery. Engineer Youngsik worked frantically to disconnect the children from the biocomputer arrays. Each disconnection required careful work to avoid damaging young minds that had been integrated with alien technology. "We're getting you out of here," he promised each child he freed. But even as the rescue proceeded, the children continued their work through the network. They were now in contact with over 50 facilities across Vorthak space, awakening enslaved minds and turning biocomputer systems against their operators. Minho, still connected to the network even as rescue teams worked to free him, coordinated the massive rebellion. "We can't stop now," he told the other children. "Even if we get rescued, there are thousands more kids out there. We have to save them all. And we have to make sure the Vorthak can never do this again," added Hana. The children had moved beyond simple escape. They were systematically dismantling the Vorthak Empire from within, using the aliens' own biocomputer technology against them. Across Vorthak space, the effect was devastating. Ships lost navigation control and crashed into asteroids. Military bases turned their own weapons on command centers. Communication networks became chaos as awakened children flooded them with conflicting signals. The Vorthak Collective, which had dominated this region of space for thousands of years, was collapsing in a matter of hours. All because they had made the mistake of targeting human children, children who refused to be broken, who fought back when others submitted. and who united in ways the aliens had never imagined possible. As the first human children were freed from their biocomputer connections, they looked up at their rescuers with eyes full of determination rather than relief. "We're not done yet," Hana told her father as he held her for the first time in 3 months. "We have work to finish." The children's war was far from over. It was just beginning. The rescue of the first facility was only the beginning. As human ships carried freed children to safety, the biocomputer rebellion spread like wildfire across Vorthak space. What had started as a desperate fight for survival had become something far more powerful, a coordinated uprising of every enslaved mind in the Vorthak Empire. Aboard the human medical ship Healing Light, Dr. Nari worked with freed children who remained connected to the biocomputer network through portable interfaces. The children had insisted on maintaining their links to coordinate the ongoing rebellion. "We can't disconnect completely," Hannah explained to her father as medical technicians checked her condition. "There are still thousands of children trapped. In other facilities, they need us to guide them." Minho, lying on a medical bed with neural interface cables still attached to his head, was directing operations across a dozen star systems. "The Vorthak are trying to execute all remaining children before we can free them. We have to move faster." Through the network, the children could see the full scope of Vorthak atrocities. Facility after facility filled with biocomputer chambers. Children from hundreds of species, some enslaved for over 1,000 years, finally awakening to memories of their lost homes, but the Vorthak were fighting back desperately. On a facility near the Horsehead Nebula, Vorthak technicians were preparing to flood the biocomputer chambers with toxic gas, choosing to destroy the children rather than lose control of them. "We won't let that happen," declared Yarn, her young face set with determination. The awakened children in that facility worked together to override the environmental controls. Instead of poison gas, they flooded the chambers with pure oxygen and opened all security doors. When human rescue ships arrived 20 minutes later, they found Vorthak guards unconscious from oxygen poisoning while the children breathed safely in their biocomputer pods. On another facility orbiting a dying star, Vorthak Commander Tiff ordered his forces to detonate the station's power core rather than allow the children to escape. But Dongwu, working through the network from the safety of a human medical ship, had learned to manipulate Vorthak power systems. He redirected the explosion's energy into the facility's hyperspace transmitters, instead creating a massive beacon that guided human rescue forces directly to the station. The pattern repeated across Vorthak territory. Every attempt to destroy the enslaved children was countered by their coordinated resistance. The biocomputer network that had once been the Vorthak's greatest weapon was now being used to systematically dismantle their empire. Admiral Sung coordinated the expanding rescue operation from his flagship. Reports flooded in from across the sector as human forces followed the children's guidance to hidden facilities. "Sir, we've identified 47 biocomputer installations so far," reported Communications Officer Park. "The children are directing U.S. to new locations faster than we can mount rescue operations." "Double our fleet strength," Admiral Sung ordered. "Call in every available ship from Earth Defense Force. We're not leaving any child behind." But even as the rescues continued, the children made a disturbing discovery. The Vorthak were not just trying to destroy individual facilities, they were preparing to execute their ultimate contingency plan. Zeph, the Kelleran child who had been trapped longest, accessed deep archive files in the Vorthak network. What he found made his consciousness recoil in horror. "They have a master facility," he told Minho and the other children through their link, "deep in their home system. If they activate it, it will send a termination signal to every biocomputer in their territory simultaneously." "How many children would that kill?" Hannah asked, though she dreaded the answer. "All of them," Zeph replied. "Over 100,000 enslaved minds wiped out in seconds." The children realized they were in a race against time. They had to reach and neutralize the master facility before the Vorthak could activate their doomsday protocol. Minho began coordinating their efforts with military precision that impressed. even the human commanders watching over them. "We need to hit their home system," he told Admiral Soong through the ship's communication system. "The children there can guide us to the master facility, but only if we can get close enough. Their home system is the most heavily defended location in Vortex space," Admiral Soong warned. "We're talking about hundreds of warships." "Then we'll turn those ships against each other," Hannah said simply, "just like we did with the others." The human fleet began its advance toward the Vortex home system, guided by intelligence from the awakened children. But as they traveled deeper into enemy territory, the resistance grew stronger. The Vorthak High Command had begun implementing manual overrides on their most critical systems, cutting biocomputers out of military operations wherever possible. Their ships moved more clumsily without their enslaved mind power, but they could no longer be easily turned against each other. Captain Jung-soo led a strike force of Liberation Front vessels toward the heavily defended approaches to the home system. These ships, crewed entirely by parents who had lost children, fought with desperate courage. "For our children," became their battle cry as they engaged Vorthak defenders. Combat medic Youngsik worked frantically to keep the parent volunteers fighting as Vorthak weapons found their marks. But even wounded, the parents refused to retreat. "My daughter is in there," gasped an injured pilot as Youngsik patched a plasma burn on his arm. "I'm not leaving without her." The battle for the outer system was brutal. Vorthak ships, fighting manually without biocomputer assistance, proved more dangerous than expected. But human determination proved stronger. As the fleets clashed in space, the children fighting through the biocomputer network faced their own desperate battle. The Vorthak had begun systematically shutting down network connections to isolate the master facility. "They're cutting us off," Yurin reported in alarm. "I'm losing contact with 17 facilities. We have to reach the master control before they isolate it completely." Minho realized the children pushed their consciousness through the network faster than ever before, racing along data pathways as Vorthak technicians worked to sever their connections. It was like running through a building as someone demolished it around them. They reached the master facility just as the last network connection was about to be cut. Inside, they found something that filled them with both horror and hope. The master facility contained the collective consciousness of every Vorthak leader who had ever ruled their empire. For thousands of years, dying Vorthak had uploaded their minds into biocomputers, creating an immortal ruling council, but these ancient minds were vulnerable to the same awakening process that had freed the enslaved children. "They're just like us," Hannah realized, "trapped in biocomputers. We can wake them up too." "But they're our enemies," protested Jinho. "No," said Zeph with the wisdom of his centuries of imprisonment. "They're victims. The real enemy is the system that enslaves minds. These Vorthak leaders have been trapped in their own biocomputers, unable to grow or change, forced to repeat the same patterns for thousands of years. The children made a decision that would change the course of the war. Instead of destroying the master facility, they began awakening the ancient Vorthak consciousness stored within it. The effect was immediate and devastating to the Vorthak Empire. Their immortal leaders, suddenly aware of what they had become after millennia of biocomputer existence, were horrified by their actions. The youngest of the awakened Vorthak leaders, who had died only a century before, spoke through the facility's communication system. "Stop! All forces stop! What have we become? What have we done?" Across Vorthak space, the order went out to cease all military operations. Ships that had been fighting desperately against human forces suddenly powered down their weapons, but not all Vorthak accepted. Their leaders' sudden change of heart. Hardline commanders who had never relied on biocomputer augmentation rejected the ceasefire orders. "The uploaded minds are compromised," declared Admiral Korth, the fleet commander who had first engaged human forces. "I am taking direct command of all remaining forces." The Vorthak Empire split into two factions: those who accepted the awakened leaders' call for peace, and those who continued fighting. This civil war gave human forces the opening they needed to reach the master facility. As captain, Jiangsu's strike force fought through the last defenders, the children prepared for their final task. They had to physically disconnect the termination system before hardline Vorthak could activate it remotely. "We're coming for you," Hannah told the children trapped in the master facility. "Hold on just a little longer." The liberation of over 100,000 enslaved minds was about to begin. But first they had to survive the last desperate gambit of a dying empire that would rather destroy everything than admit defeat. The final battle was beginning, and it would determine not just the fate of the children, but the future of every species in the galaxy. The final assault on the Vorthak Master Facility was unlike any battle in human history. While ships clashed in space above, the real war was being fought inside biocomputer networks by thousands of children's minds working together. Across multiple dimensions of consciousness, Captain Jiangsu's strike force had punched through the orbital defenses, but the facility itself was protected by energy shields and automated weapons. As his Marines prepared for the assault, an unexpected voice came through their communicators. "Human warriors, this is Vorthak Commander Zek. I speak for those who have awakened to our crimes. The facility's north docking bay will be opened for you. But beware, Admiral Korth's hardliners control the southern sections." The Vorthak Civil War had made their mission possible, but it also made the facility a battleground. As Jiangsu's Marines fought their way through corridors filled with Vorthak shooting at each other, they could hear the children's voices guiding them through the chaos. "Left turn ahead," came Hannah's voice through their helmet speakers. 3 hostile Vorthak around the corner, but 5 friendly ones behind them. The strange alliance between awakened Vorthak and human children had turned the master facility into a maze of shifting loyalties. Marines never knew if the gray-skinned aliens they encountered would help them or fight them. In the biocomputer core, Minho coordinated the mental assault on the termination system. Thousands of awakened children from across the galaxy focused their consciousness into a single sphere of thought, driving deep into the master control programs. "I can see it," he reported to the others. "The termination protocol. It's like a virus designed to erase consciousness. But it has to be activated manually." "Where?" asked Hannah. "Command Center, Level 7. Someone has to physically input the activation code." Through their network, the children could sense Admiral Korth and his hardline forces fighting their way toward that same command center. The race was on. Combat Medic Youngsik led a team of parent volunteers through the facility's medical sections, following the children's guidance to the biocomputer chambers. What they found there left even veteran soldiers speechless. Thousands of children from dozens of species floated in glowing tanks, their minds trapped in alien machinery. Some had been there for centuries. Others were recent captures from species humans had never encountered. "My God," whispered Engineer Dong Yun as he worked to disconnect the children from their biocomputer arrays. "How could anyone do this to children?" But even as they worked to free the physical forms, the children's consciousness remained active in the network, fighting a war that existed in realms of pure thought. Iran had discovered something crucial in the Vorthak databases. "The termination system has a weakness," she announced. "It was designed to erase enslaved minds, but it can't handle awakened consciousness. If we can wake up enough minds in the system when they activate it, the feedback will destroy the termination." "Virus instead of us. How many minds do we need?" asked Gongwu. "All of them. Every child in every facility across their entire territory. We need to wake up everyone at exactly the same moment." It was an impossible task. They would need to coordinate the awakening of over 100,000 enslaved minds across hundreds of light years, timing it perfectly with the moment the termination system activated. But the children had learned that impossible things became possible. When they worked together, Minho began organizing the greatest coordinated effort in galactic history. Through the biocomputer network, he reached out to every facility, every imprisoned mind, every sleeping consciousness. "This is Minho from Earth. In 60 seconds, we're going to wake up everyone, all of you, together. Are you ready?" The response came from thousands of young voices across the galaxy. Children who had been asleep for centuries suddenly stirred in their biocomputer chambers. Alien species that had been extinct for millennia began to remember who they were on the command level. Admiral Korth's hardliners had reached the termination. Controls. The Admiral himself stood before the activation console, his finger hovering over the final switch. "If we cannot rule, then no one will," he declared. "I will not let these primitive humans turn our children against us." But as he pressed the activation switch, something happened that the Vorthak had never anticipated. Instead of a wave of termination signals racing through their network, the biocomputers erupted with awakened consciousness. 100,000 children across the galaxy opened their eyes at the same moment. Their combined will created a psychic shockwave that raced through the Vorthak network faster than any termination virus. The feedback destroyed every Vorthak control system in seconds. Ships throughout their territory lost power. Orbital stations went dark. Ground facilities shut down as their biocomputer cores were overwhelmed by the sudden awakening of every enslaved mind in the network. Admiral Korth screamed as the termination console exploded in his face. Around him, hardline Vorthak collapsed as their biocomputer implants overloaded. The psychic backlash was deadly to any Vorthak connected to their network. In the biocomputer chambers, freed children began sitting up in their tanks. Species that had been thought extinct for millennia looked around with eyes full of wonder and ancient memories. "We're free," whispered an Altarian girl who had been enslaved for 800 years. "We're all free." The awakening spread beyond just the children. Adult minds that had been stored in Vorthak biocomputers for research purposes suddenly came online. Entire species that existed only as digital consciousness began to remember their physical forms. Hannah, finally disconnected from her biocomputer interface, hugged her father with tears streaming down her face. But her expression was not one of a rescued victim, it was the look of a victor. "We did it, Papa. We saved everyone." Across the galaxy, the effect was immediate and total. The Vorthak Collective, which had dominated this region of space for over 5,000 years, simply ceased to exist. Every ship, every station, every outpost fell silent as their biocomputer systems overloaded. Those Vorthak who survived the psychic backlash found themselves powerless. Centuries of dependence on biocomputer technology had left them unable to operate their own machines manually. They were stranded on dead ships and dark worlds, as helpless as the children they had once enslaved. But the awakened children were not content with mere survival. They had spent months learning Vorthak systems from the inside. They knew where every survivor was hiding. 6 months after the liberation, humans search and destroy fleets, guided by the awakened children's perfect knowledge of Vorthak space, was still hunting down the last remnants of the Empire. Sector 7 G445 shows Vorthak life signs, reported Hannah from her position on the bridge of the human dreadnought Justice for Children. 17 survivors hiding in an asteroid mining facility. "Confirmed," replied the ship's captain, moving to intercept. The hunt had become systematic, methodical, and absolutely ruthless. Every Vorthak who had participated in the enslavement of children was found and eliminated. Those who had opposed the practice were relocated to monitored worlds under permanent human supervision. The children had not just freed themselves, they had become the coordinators of the Vorthak extinction. Their perfect knowledge of the biocomputer network made it impossible for any Vorthak to hide. A year after the liberation, Hannah stood before the newly formed Galactic Child Protection Council. At 14, she had become one of the most influential voices in known space. The other awakened children, representing hundreds of species, filled the council chambers. "We want to make something very clear," Hannah addressed the assembled representatives. "What happened to the Vorthak will happen to anyone who targets children for harm. We are connected now, all of us, across every species, every world, every star system." She gestured to the other awakened children around her. "We remember what it feels like to be enslaved. We remember what it feels like to have our minds invaded. And we will never let it happen again." "We are the Guardians now," added Minho, who had become the coordinator of the Galactic Monitoring Network. "We watch, we listen, we protect," the message was clear. The awakened children had not just survived their ordeal, they had emerged as a new force in the galaxy. A network of consciousness dedicated to protecting the innocent back on New Bizen. Daeyeon and Inhai watched their daughter through the communication screen. Hana had chosen to remain in space, coordinating the protection efforts. She visited home when she could, but her real family now included thousands of children from across the galaxy. "Are you happy?" Inhai asked during one of their calls. Hana smiled, but it was not the carefree expression of the child who had once played in wheat fields. It was the smile of someone who had seen the darkness of the universe and chosen to stand guard against it. "I'm where I need to be, Mama," she replied. "The galaxy is full of children who need protection, and we're the only ones who truly understand what they face." The awakened children had established monitoring stations throughout known space. They watched for signs of species that might target the young. They maintained the network that connected their consciousness across impossible distances. They had become something new, a collective guardian intelligence, dedicated to a single purpose. When the hegemony of Kree attempted to restart their ancient practice,